Hello, reporter room investigators. Happy New Year.
Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies starts now.
Well, guys, we have a lot of stuff to get into on the Bryan Kohberger case. We're going to be digging into some stuff. Most of you already know that the house at the 1122 King Road location has been um, torn down. It's gone. It's absolutely completely gone. If you'd be so kind as to subscribe on your way in. And let's see who's here. I've got Tara and Judy and Miranda. Welcome, guys. And we'll come on in. Come on in. If you're just coming in, we're going to be going through the Bryan Kohberger case. While we're getting people in, let me just go ahead and thank my executive producer, my producers, channel members. I'd also like to thank all of our subscribers. Thank you so much. It's free to subscribe and it really helps me out. If you'd be so kind as to smash the thumbs up button on your way in, it helps me out so much with the YouTube algorithm. So let's get into a bunch of new information that we have to go for. If you aren't familiar with this channel, welcome. If you're here for the first time, if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm glad that you're here. And let's get into today's topics. So we have so much stuff to dig into. First of all, we're going to be talking about the Bryan Kohberger case. I'm going to be talking about this case in terms of Bryan Kohberger because he is the only one who's arrested, indicted, and who's sitting in jail. Now, he is innocent until proven guilty, but we are going to discuss this case in terms of him being the perpetrator because no one else has been charged with any type of crime besides him. So, some interesting tidbits. I've been doing a lot of research on this case, and we're going to be talking about October 21st of 2022. In just a second, I have some stuff we're going to dig into on that. But a lot of people I've seen in your comments section that you're talking about Bryan Kohberger driving around. Why would he drive his own vehicle? And also the fact that he had a master's degree in criminology and was working on his PhD. Why would somebody like this do something like this? And I just wanted to share with you that Ted Bundy studied psychology and law, and the Dennis Rader, who was the BTK perpetrator, studied criminal justice, and he spent 6 years installing ADT security alarm systems in people's houses. The Golden State SK, that's James D'Angelo, he studied criminal justice and spent 6 years working as a police officer. And Bryan had his bachelor's degree in psychology, which is really interesting because both of his sisters are mental health professionals also. They both have degrees in psychology. So a lot of people who go into psychology, it's because they're interested in it, but some people go into it because there's something going on in their own lives. And it makes me wonder if something was going on in the Kohberger household. And is this what spurred his sisters and Bryan to all get degrees in psychology or mental health? What do you guys think? So we have a lot of information to dig into. Let's get started. Everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion. Opinions are not facts, so please don't send any negativity to anyone. Let's be kind to each other. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up so I know you were here. You can also hit the thanks button. I am fundraising for new editing software. I'm trying to raise $175. I would like to thank our moderators, our channel members, and our subscribers. I'm also going to be doing a giveaway to celebrate when we get to 35,000 subscribers. And I will give you some more information on that in an upcoming video. So stay tuned for that. You can hit the notification bell if you want to make sure you don't miss it. I'm giving away cash. Okay, so let's talk about BK, and let's start with his love of long drives. And then we're going to get into the October 21st date in just a second. So BK's not the first perpetrator who liked to take long drives. Allegedly, he hasn't been indicted yet. Son of Sam, that's David Berkowitz, also liked to take long drives to find victims. And Ted Bundy used to drive around in his own 1975 Volkswagen. He would drive around, select victims. Now, I've seen in the comment section, like, why would BK use his own car? He wouldn't. It must be a setup because nobody would use their own car. But what were his alternatives? Well, he could rent a car, right? But then they would get the rental car on video and be able to track the tags right back to him. He could borrow a car from a friend, right? But then the friend would probably see or hear that his car was spotted, and they would be able to track the car right back to him. And if he did those two things, he wouldn't be able to control changing tags or cleaning. So his best bet was to Dexter out his own vehicle and plan to change his tags, his license plate tags, once he returned to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. This was a trip that he reportedly had planned with his father, Michael Kohberger. So he knew he was returning to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. He knew he could change his tags out once he got there, which is exactly what he did. So in my opinion, his safest option for him was to use his own car, change his own tags, Dexter it out beforehand, wear a jumpsuit or monkey suit, as they call it, a Dickies, which we did see in the affidavit that law enforcement had found a Dickies receipt. I bet you it's going to be the monkey suit or jumpsuit that he wore. And then clean out the car meticulously. So we know that law enforcement has observed him meticulously cleaning out the car, wearing gloves. So let's talk about different types of SKs and where does Bryan Kohberger fall into all of this? And let me just check on the chat for a second, you guys. I don't even think I said hello to people. I was just so excited to get into all this. Okay, let's see where we're at. Oh yeah, I've missed a ton. Okay. Hi Tara. Hello B Rando. Hi Judy. Mike is here. I'm so glad you're here. Lynette's here. Stacy is here. Our head mod Six Sensibilia is here. Good afternoon from New Zealand. Donna is here. Please tell me where you guys are from. Ladybug is here. Hello. And yes, the house has been torn down. They actually gave journalists the time that it was going to be torn down, and the journalists arrived early to set up, and the house was half down when they got there. So they were, I think, worried about protesters potentially, and just as told the public this is what time, and then went in there and did it early. Impulse, yeah. We're going to talk about what type of crime type of personality that Bryan Kohberger would fall into. Mike says, I think he convinced himself since no camera is on him doing the actual crime that he could get away with it. Yeah, and he took a roundabout way to get back, right? Six Sensibility says, I've been away, get up to speed. Yeah, we have so much stuff to catch up on. Juanita, hello. Great to see you from Levin. And is that NZ? Where is that, New Zealand? Wow, that's awesome, Juanita. Elizabeth is here. She says, many counselors became counselors to help others the way that it helped them. Yes, that's exactly right. A lot of people who major in psychology have that. Yes, thank you, hepatic frequencies. Please hit the thumbs up. It helps me out a lot. Let me just see if let me just check. I'm just checking on if we are live on YouTube, making sure I'm up and going. Yes, we are live. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that Zero's here. Hey, Zero. Zero says, seems like crime would be the only thing Bryan ever thought about. Yeah. He thought about it a lot, didn't he? And we're going to talk about what kind of person um, gets a criminology degree. And is this unprecedented? Do we have anybody else who's committed crimes similar to this? Have they had similar educational backgrounds? You're going to be surprised at what I found out. I did a lot of research before going live. Bryan had no money. Yeah, he was dependent on the Washington State University's teaching assistant job that was covering his housing, his health insurance, giving him some money. So it's very, very, he would have been very, very upset to lose that position. And that takes us back to what happened on October 21st. It's not the day he lost his position, but the day is significant. I'm going to tell you why in just a second. And says, I want to know if there are any DNA in his car, any footprints from the crime scene to his exit. Well, that's a great question. And we know there was a footprint found. We know it was a Van's shoe footprint. And that's all we know because there has been a gag order and the prosecution has been very tight lipped. We also know, and I showed you pictures early on in the case, that they had a print on the window. Now, that could have been somebody else, but it could also have been him coming up, looking in the window, although I think he would have double gloved. I think he had gloves on. Great question, Ann. Elizabeth says, his sister, I believe it was or is a counselor of some sort. Yes, and apparently the other sister also has a mental health license and degree. So both of them, one is a psychologist and the other one is a mental health professional. I don't know if she's a psychologist also. And then Bryan had his bachelor. So it kind of makes you wonder why. Why was this family so interested in psychology? What was going on in the household, if anything? Zero says, I want to know who's okay. Um, Well, is gonna be either Xana or Ethan, 0, in my opinion. We don't know for sure because we don't have any information yet, but that would be my educated guess based on where everybody was located. Kat says hello from Michigan. Uh, Six Sense Amelia saying hello. Juanita says hello. Yeah, got 2 people from New Zealand. What are the odds? Juliet is here. Juliet says an excellent report. Hand, pink, waving hi. Waving you back, Juliet. Thank you. Jenna is from Texas, New Zealand. Birando says, hit that thumbs. Oh, yeah, please hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And consider becoming a channel member and having your name appear in all of my videos forever. Tara says, we have to investigate the supposed hidden tunnels under the house. Like I said, well, I actually did some investigating into the tunnels because I would have made a video for you on it had I found anything credible about it. But to just be clear, there are no tunnels located under the 1122 King Road house. They just tore it down in front of the press. There's no tunnel under that house. There are old tunnels that would have had like steam and stuff coming to houses, gas lines and stuff like that in every city, but nothing specifically under the 1122 King Road house. Whoever told you that um, didn't do. I don't know. I don't even want to like put down another content creator, but I did look into it because believe me, if that had been a thing, I would have made a video on it. But I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna mislead you guys, and I'm going to tell you the truth to the best of my ability, to the best that I know it, and share opinions that are based in fact. That I will promise you. I will promise you that I will do my best to always provide you guys with credible information. Zero says, and footprint appeared to indicate it was made through booties he was wearing. We don't know yet, Zero. We don't know yet. That is a rumor. I have not been able to independently confirm that. I just know it was a Vans shoe print. I don't know if it matched any shoes. I would think that he would have gotten rid of everything he was wearing because the reason I think that Bethany saw someone without anything on exiting through the patio doors and Dylan saw somebody dressed all in black is because I do think somebody was dressed all in black with bushy eyebrows wearing a mask, came down the stairs, Dylan cracked the door open and she saw him. And I think Bethany heard noises also. And when she came up the stairs, whoever this was didn't see Dylan And Dylan closed the door and locked it. She was startled. Stripped off that jumpsuit and had a change of clothes in the car. That's my opinion. And would have changed somewhere between the crime scene at 1122 King Road and Pullman, Washington. Clown Circus is a troll. I don't know. I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. Let's see. Zero, I've been looking at some of the stuff being posted on YouTube. It's going to be a wild trial. It is. And I'm going to be airing it on this channel for you guys. We're going to be watching it together. If you'd like to watch it together with me, I'm going to be airing the trial every day that it's up, and we're expecting it to start this summer. You're welcome, Lady P. B. Rando says, we know nothing except law enforcement statements. Yeah, we have the affidavit and some of the early stuff from law enforcement, but we don't know. There's so much we still don't know, but we're going to dig into a lot of stuff. I did a bunch of research before I went live with you guys tonight. So we have a lot to dig into. And we're going to talk about that October 21st date, why that's significant in just a second. So please stay with me. Mama Bear says, don't forget to hit the like button. You guys are so awesome. Thank you for that. Mayan Sane World says, I've been hearing people say they have destroyed evidence. Jessica, I was trying to point out how the rumors have been spread. I've seen a few things like this tunnel story that's popping up. Yeah, I've seen those too. And I could have made a video on that, but it would have been dishonest for me to do that, because when I looked into if there were tunnels running under the 1122 King Road house, I found out that it wasn't true. And so I didn't want to trash another content creator, but I also didn't want to give you guys fake information either. Elizabeth said, I was listening to an old case where a girl who was 10 at the time saw her family froze over for 4 hours before moving a muscle. Yeah, people do freeze. It's a normal reaction. Animals do it too in the wild, right? They freeze. And they tell you if you ever encounter a bear to play dead. There's a reason that works, and that there's a reason that animals freeze. Now, I'm not saying she was frozen for hours. They could have just said, what did you do when she saw him? And she goes, I was just like frozen in shock phase. And then she was like annoyed that somebody had a guest over and didn't tell her, and closed the door, locked it because there's a strange man spending the night with one of her roommates. Maybe that's what she thought. Remember, she was the youngest in the house and she was the newest roommate. So we don't know how long she was frozen, but unfortunately for Dylan, and this is like so sad for Dylan, that affidavit came out and then the gag order came out right after it. She never got to speak up for herself. So everybody's been putting all this information onto the roommates and onto Dylan. And we don't know because she hasn't had her say yet. So I'm urging caution. Louise said, I thought that the house could only be knocked down after the trial. That's what the families wanted too, Louise. The families wanted it really badly, but unfortunately, they took it down. Tara says that is a criminal content creator. I don't know. Okay. Well, I mean, we're all covering true crime. And Zero says, what do you think there might be plenty of evidence? Denise says, plan on watching the trial here. Hey, John, how are you doing? Good to see you. Hi, Brandy. Hi, John. Inez says, watching from SoCal. Nice. Holly says, hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had to work. No worries. Glad you're here. And Tara says, I don't know, but I personally think they have enough for a convention. Louis says he must have been covered. Yeah, I would think that he would have been. I think that is a fair thing. So let's go into some more of the information. I wanted to talk about 4 different kinds of people who commit crimes like this. There's the visionary, and so he's going to fall into one of these 4 categories. Tell me if you think it's number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4. Number 1 is the visionary. The visionary is someone who believes that a person or entity is commanding him or her to do the crime. Number 2 is mission oriented. So they do this crime to get rid of a certain group in society. Number 3 is power control. That's power/control. This person fantasizes about having power and seeks to dominate and control victims. And then number 4 is hedonistic, commits the acts for his own personal pleasure. So do you think that BK falls into 1, the visionary, 2, mission oriented, 3, power and control, 4, hedonistic? Let me know in the comment section below. I'll tell you what I think. I think it's number 3. I think he falls into power and control. This type of personality fantasizes about having the power and seeks to dominate and control victims. I believe that he falls into the power and control group. I believe that he thought about this, fantasized about this. I think he was stalking and peeping into the windows at the 1122 King Road house. I think he was sitting up in that back parking lot, looking down into what would have been a goldfish bowl into Maddie's room. And again, I'm talking about this case in terms of BK. He is innocent until proven guilty, but he's the only one who's been arrested, indicted, and is in jail. So I'm going to be talking about this case in terms of him today. So Ted Bundy committed many of these things using his beige 1975 VW Beetle. He would lure women back to that car with a variety of different lies, from he needed help because his arm was in a cast. And he actually did away with victims in his own car and continued to drive it. So this type of thing of using your own car, it's not unprecedented. So I want to talk to you about some profilers too. We're going to start with Dr. Gary Bricato's profiler. Now, he did this profile prior to BK being arrested. Tell me if you can see how many of the things that line up with BK. He thought it was male, someone who operated or was working alone, someone who is odd or has trouble with relationships. We know that no one else has been arrested, so whoever did this alone. We know that BK's father, Michael, was asking a neighbor to befriend BK because he has trouble making friends. And we know BK was in trouble with WSC, with this teaching assistant position, because he was having trouble with student relationships. Someone who's mechanical, rigid, or particular. We know BK wore gloves. He was sorting trash. He was known to be OCD, so mechanical, rigid, particular. I think that's a check. Someone who has temper and holds grudges. I don't know. This person most likely uses a knife because of perceived intimacy with his victims. So that's an up close and very personal way to do something like what was done. And we know that this was very vicious. My understanding is that it was so bad that a lot of law enforcement had PTSD after being at the crime scene. This person had a grudge and methodically monitored and planned this out versus a heat of the moment, spur of the moment attack. And I agree. I think that this was planned out. I think he practiced, which is why we're going to go back to October 21st in just a second. I think he practiced. I think he planned it out. I think he dextered out his car. I think he picked out that K-bar knife. I believe law enforcement's going to show us some searches and maybe even a receipt for that knife in the trial. We'll see. This person would have felt a great deal of relief and satisfaction in the days afterward. So BK is not the first person to study psychology or criminology. As I shared with you earlier, Ted Bundy studied psychology and law. BTK, Dennis Rader, studied criminal justice. He installed ADT alarm systems. He was also a deacon in his church. James D'Angelo, that's the Golden State. SK, he studied criminal justice and spent 6 years working as a police officer. So the fact that BK had his bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in criminology, was working on his PhD is not unprecedented at all. Now, former FBI agent, we're going through profilers on this, and security expert, this is Pete Yametz. He said that doing away with Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie may have been an effort to assert some type of dominance. And he believes that BK's history of social challenges, and we know this from the Seven Sirens bar that he used to go into. The staff knew him. He had trouble. We know this from a former woman who went on a date with him, who he told had nice wide birthing hips, and she went in her bathroom and pretended to vomit until he would leave. I mean, That's a weird thing to text somebody. It's just weird. It's awkward. So social challenges, definitely. He's the same profiler and former FBI agent said, I believe a continued um, what happened to the victims, I'm watching my words, proved an uncontrollable rage and extreme anger. So he pointed out that BK has a history of socially awkward interpersonal problems. And we're hearing that BK's own sisters point blank asked him, one of them, if he did it. So let's look at the incel theory that was put forward by multiple profilers too. And then we're going to go back to October 21st. This all ties in. I'm going to tie it up in a bow for you in just a few minutes. But the term incel, that's involuntary celibate, that's the classification that I believe, in my opinion, that he does fall into. This is someone who struggles to form romantic relationships. Now, most people who are involuntarily or voluntarily celibate don't bother anybody. They don't do any harm. This is an extremist type of personality. But this is Dr. Carol Lieberman speaking. She said that from the beginning she believed that he was an incel. She was largely convinced of this because of the choice of victims and the decision to target mostly female college students. Those were his victims, and I believe that this is linked back to his teaching assistant job. We know that one of the reasons that Washington State University ultimately let him go from his teaching assistant position, then this would have angered him, was the fact that female college students were having issues with him. They believed they were being graded differently than the male college students. So we also have BK's DNA. A lot of people have been like, yeah, but he could have touched it some other time. Okay. But the DNA was left on the knife sheath to the side and underneath Maddie. And again, the chances of that being the same person that was driving the white Hyundai Elantra that circled that house 3 times, it's just the coincidences are starting to add up. They really are. And as I've shared with you in another live stream, BK has to be the unluckiest person in the world, or he did it. So it excludes that DNA, that touch DNA. 99.998% of the male population in the world. This is according to police affidavit. So that's very interesting. And here's another little interesting tidbit. We know that law enforcement had to get a court order. A judge had to order BK to provide the cheek swab. If he was so interested in exonerating himself, why not go down and give his DNA to law enforcement? Or once he was arrested, why not offer it up? So many of the people that were around this case did give their DNA to be ruled out, but he refused. And a court order had to be gotten for him to provide his DNA. Does that mean he's guilty? No. But for somebody who wants to exonerate himself, it's a little odd. So, profiler John Kelly has a great YouTube channel. He's an expert criminal profiler. He's also a psychotherapist, and he's interviewed multiple SKs over the course of his career. And he said, quote, "What's interesting is how people are talking about how smart he is." And I think there is this this perception because of movies like Silence of the Lambs that guys who commit these kind of crimes are all high IQ, and some of them are. Ted Bundy had a high IQ, but most of them are average or lower. So he said, looking from an investigative standpoint and looking at the mistakes he made, Criminology 101, and he said, quote, "He looks like a moron to me. I think he was an incel and just really hated women." And when asked if he believed this crime was targeted, profiler John Kelly, who has an awesome YouTube channel, you could check it out, said, "I believe if the injury patterns demonstrate that one or two of the victims were treated differently, and we don't know yet. We've heard from a little bit from Kaylee Gonzalez's father, right? That that he felt like some victims were he was savage with one victim over the other one. But we don't know exactly how that works out yet. We're going to find out at the trial. But John Kelly said that if the injury patterns demonstrate that one or two victims were clearly treated differently, then John Kelly would say that this was targeted. So we don't know yet. We're going to find out. We're going to talk about former FBI agent and criminal profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole also weighed in. She said, "It seems plain to me. It seems that there was an effort and strategic thinking that went into this. And what is concerning for me, whoever the suspect ends up being," and she didn't know who did it at this point. And she said that there was strategic thinking during the crime. In other words, the person was not overwhelmed by what he or she did, or they did, her word was they, but strategically thinking throughout the entire crime. And that goes to a whole different type of personality. So let me grab this. Okay, so let's go back. Let me just see the chat. Sorry, I'm like, Holly said, "I think BK set out to confuse law enforcement from the get-go." Lynette says, I think he thinks he's smarter than everyone else." I think you're right. Zero says, "I think he's above average, but excelled because he studied obsessively." Yeah, I think he's smart. I just don't think he's like a genius mastermind, but I think he practiced. I do. And Holly says, "Right, Lynette. I mean, I think what did him in, what ultimately got him caught was that knife sheath. And as much as you practice, maybe he was not expecting Kaylee to be in that room with Maddie. Maybe he was. I don't know. We'll find out at the trial. But okay, so let's go to October 21st. Hold on one second. This is the profiler, John Kelly, that I just passed a second ago. Okay. All right, let's go back. Okay, so let's go back to what was going on leading up to October 21st. So, what happened on October 21st? Well, and this was leading up to the crime, which happened on November 13th of 2022. We've learned that BK was in trouble and ultimately was fired from his teaching position at Washington State University. He lived in Pullman, Washington, just a few minutes away from University of Idaho. And you guys remember Buddy the dog who was taken from the property? Now, we were all speculating at the time if Buddy the dog, this little shepherd dog, could have been related to this because he lived just 3 miles away from the 1122 King Road house. Well, let's go back to October 22nd because that's the day that Buddy disappeared out of his own backyard, right? We're hearing, we don't know for sure, but we're hearing that Bryan, that they did find receipts that show that Bryan purchased that K-bar knife and sheath. This is coming through unverified sources, so I'll give it to you with that caveat, but we're finding out that he purchased this in April, on April 22nd of 2022. So let's consider what we know. So he had that knife. He had that knife. This is coming through unverified sources, but he had the knife. On October 21st, the very day that Buddy disappeared out of his own backyard, BK received an email reprimanding him from his boss, a professor at WSU. That's the very day that Buddy disappeared out of his own yard. BK met with faculty members to discuss his job performance and disturbing behaviors with female students. And this would have been really humiliating for him. This was a man that already didn't have a lot of friends. He didn't have that many people that he was close to. We've already heard reported from his dad, Michael Kohberger, that BK, as in his dad asked a neighbor to be friendly with BK. So this loss of a teaching assistant would have affected his ability to get his PhD, and it would have affected his status in his own mind because he put a lot of stock into getting his education. It would have also affected his finances, his funding for college and living expenses. And do you think the fact that this was female students that were complaining would have triggered him even more? Yes. Should he have been grading male and female students wrong differently? No. Um, but he was warned, he got warnings, but on October 21st is when he got that email, and that is the day that Buddy the dog went missing from his own yard. So we know BK met with the university professor, John Schneider, who was trying to get him back on track. But according to the termination letter that was obtained by the New York Times, we know that BK met with this professor, Professor Snyder, on multiple occasions to discuss norms of professional behavior, what was normal, what was not normal. Remember the profilers that I shared with you earlier in this video talked about not having that this person would have abnormal social relationships. So in the email, the word failed. So the email was sent on October 21st, and it informed BK that he had failed to meet the conditions required to maintain his funding. This would have been a triggering word, in my opinion. On October 21st, um, Professor Snyder wrote in the email, the ways in which you had failed to meet our expectations as a TA, that's teaching assistant, thus far in the semester. So I think this would have triggered BK. I think this would have enraged him, in my opinion, especially the fact that it was female students that were reporting him. I think he got in the car. I think he was driving around. And I think that that little 12-year-old mini Australian Shepherd disappeared from inside his own yard and found later. And Pamela, who was the owner of the dog, said this was a human that did this. She had been talking to the Latah County Sheriff's Office supervisor. They told her it was not done by an animal, what had happened. And she described the dog as being cut like you fillet a fish. And who had a job filleting fish? People are like, oh, but he wasn't good at it. Okay, but he had a job filleting fish. Who I think he practiced. And if you think that this is unprecedented, it's not, because this is really common for SKs and people who do these type of crimes. They do practice. Jeffrey Dahmer practiced. Albert DeSalvo, that's the Boston Strangler, Ted Bundy, David Berkowitz, they all practiced on animals before they started with people. So that's why I believe October 21st is a critical day. I don't think it's a coincidence that he got this email and that this dog that was just a few miles away from the 1122 King Road house disappeared out of his own yard and was found later. I think BK would have been enraged, absolutely enraged about that. So let me just share this article with you on it. Let me grab it. This is the New York Post. Let me just grab this for you guys. I'm not showing you images of the dog because I don't want anybody to be, upset. Okay, but let me just grab this. And share it with you. Okay. So I think that this is this is not a coincidence. So this is Buddy, was a 12-year-old mini Australian Shepherd belonging to Pam and Jim Colber. was, and I'm not going to tell you how Buddy was found. You can read the article. It's in the New York Post. Just simply Google New York Post and Idaho students and Buddy the dog, and it will come up. But you can say what Pam said. They cut him like you fillet a fish. We found his collar. And I've heard people say that the collar was found at Bryan Kohberger. That's not true. They found his collar. His owners have his collar. So that is just simply not true. People have tried to put that lay that at Bryan Kohberger's feet. This is Jim and Pam Kohberger. This was their dog. I don't think it's a coincidence on the day that he got this email. And I think this was the day he started planning out what he was going to do. And I think he was practicing. So authorities haven't linked Buddy to what happened, but locals think that there may be a connection to the two incidences. I agree. The other thing I wanted to share with you is I talked to you about during the live stream about this picture. That this picture, this iconic picture of the Idaho students and their two roommates, this was posted by Kaylee on Instagram at around 8 p.m. on November the 12th, just hours before she was done away with. So the speculation that many of us have done, including my own channel, about the fact that maybe he didn't know who the Range Rover belonged to. He may not have, but he would have known Kaylee was in the house. So was she the target? I don't know. But he would have known she was there because she posted a picture at 8 p.m. And we know from Kaylee's parents, Steve and Christy, that he was following the girls on Instagram. Let me bring up this other. Let me grab this other one for you. Okay. And before we dig into this, let me just see if the chat has anything. I don't mean to ignore the chat. I'm sorry. Let me just go through, see what we have. Back it up here a little bit. Oh yeah, I'm behind on the chat. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you're just joining me, and please smash that like button. Let's go through the chat. Okay, so I asked you guys 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you guys did do the poll. Thank you so much. Zero says, I figure someone came in and had an argument with Ethan, like none of my business. We're going to go through the 9 early warning signs of an SK so you can know. Denise thought it was a 4. Juanita thought it was 3. That was my guess. I thought it was 3. Elizabeth believes it was 3. Jetta thought it was a 4. Katz thought it was a 4. And Mama Bear thought it was a 4. Elizabeth thought 3 and 4. Pharaoh Gamma thought it was a 3. Elizabeth said 3. Tiffany says 1 and 3. Yeah, it could be a combination. I didn't think about it that way, but you guys are right. It could be a combination. Zero said 5, raging. Yeah, that's a category that falls under that. Elizabeth thought said even his alibi is creepy. Well, yeah, the alibi is really creepy, especially when you consider that this is not unprecedented for SKs to do. Now, he doesn't technically fall under SK category because SK does a crime and then has a cooling down period, and I'm watching my words, and then does it again. So there'll be like a space. But I believe this was going to be the first. I don't think it would have been the last had he not lost that knife sheath. This is my opinion. Patricia says 3. Elizabeth says, I'm fascinated with profiling. I am too, Elizabeth. I did a whole bunch of research into this. Oh, and some of you guys recommended that I read, and this was under the Jean Benet comments, that I read the book Mindhunter. I did order it, and I started watching the show on Netflix. Wow, you guys, thanks for the referral. I am learning a lot. Thank you. My Insane World said the fact that they keep changing his alibi leads me to believe they have him. Yeah, I think you're right, Tara. I think that the fact that Anne had to put him in the car. Ann Taylor is a very good defense attorney. She's the only one in that part of Idaho who's certified for capital cases. So she's very good at what she does. And I think you're right. I think she had to put him in the car. She had to place him in the car because law enforcement has him driving to or from the crime scene on video. It's people are like, "Oh, but the phone pings could be 50 feet away." Yeah, maybe, but it's going to be more than just that. We just don't, I can't tell you what it's going to be, but it's more than just that. There's no way they would be bringing a capital punishment case without more than that, in my opinion. Farrah says when BK was in the classroom, let me grab some water. So sorry, you guys. Thank you. He served to dominate the conversation. Also, the incident with the female traffic cop, which was caught on video control issues. Yeah, it was interesting, Pharaoh Gamma, how we saw that differently. Women saw him as being somewhat manipulative, and the men saw that as not all, but a lot of the guys. It was interesting to see the comments, and I kind of did my own informal poll, men versus women, if I could tell if it was a male or female talking to me. But it was interesting. Women tended to see his behavior as more manipulative. Men just thought, well, yeah, he's talking his way out of a ticket. So it was interesting to see how different people perceive that. But not every guy felt that way, and not every woman felt the other way. It just was more so than the other. But it was interesting to see how people were looking at that same scenario and perceived it in so many different ways. And I think that it just is really, really interesting. Elizabeth said there's many red flags along the way. Yeah, and I'm wondering, Elizabeth, if this is why one of his sisters allegedly asked him if he was the one that did this. She would have seen him probably meticulously cleaning the car. She would have probably heard about this bizarre 9-hour detour that he took with his dad, Michael. Okay, I can see like stopping for a snowstorm or maybe pulling out of the way, but not a 9-hour detour is weird. That tells me that he was worried he was being tailed and maybe getting rid of some evidence along the way. I don't know. Gary is a genius on this subject. Are you talking about the profiler? Because if you are, I agree with you. Elizabeth says The Handmaid's Tale and Birthing Hips comment. Yeah, and he was in he went to the author of The Handmaid's Tale. If you haven't seen that on Hulu, it's a very good thing. The book is really good too. The author of that, he went to her, he was sitting there. He's in pictures photographed at that. And I think that's interesting that he was attending her thing. Now, I'm not saying a man couldn't like The Handmaid's Tale, but it makes me wonder why he liked it so much. I'm just saying. Mama says, "Can you imagine those intense eyes being the last you ever see?" No, I can't. It's really, really heartbreaking. We're going to go through 9 early warning signs, and I have a couple of other packages to take you through after that. My Insane World of Terror says, Farragamo, I was thinking he seemed to want to control women. He seemed to bully female from the few incidents I've seen. Yeah, and in reading through the New York Times article, I reread that, Tara, and I think you're right. And I think that in reading through it, one of the things that popped out to me was that he was walking female students to their cars when they didn't want him to, and they were creeped out by it. They were disturbed by it. They didn't like him walking them to the car. And I think that's very interesting as well. They were getting, creep vibes. We got a 4. Elizabeth says classmates said he seemed a wreck after, and I think it was the sheath that had him so upset. I think you're right, Elizabeth. And I think that's why he went back the next day, because everybody's like, why would you go back to the crime scene? It was either A, to look at the mess, the circus, the chaos, right? To enjoy the show that he had created. It was either A, that reason, or B, when he got home and he looked in the bag, because I believe he took everything off. That's why Bethany saw somebody without wearing stuff on their bodies, watching my words, exiting through the patio door when he took everything out and put it in a trash bag and carried it out. I think when he got home, he realized he did not have that knife sheath. And he would have known that that was a problem. He probably thought, well, I wiped it down. And he went back to the house at 9 o'clock in the morning, trying to gauge if he could go back in or not. Did he go back in? I don't know. But we've had people say that front door was open. So did he go back in? Is that when the van's shoe print was left? Not flying high in Duper's delight, but talking about it in class and drinking more coffee. I'm happy I'm back too, Denise. Thank you. That's so nice of you to say. Please hit the um, like button if you're enjoying this coverage. I've got 2 more packages to present after this one, but we're going to go through early warnings of SK so that you guys can be aware if you see somebody like this in your life. These students that he was teaching, these female students, felt creeped out. The woman he went on a date with that he said texted her later to tell her she had nice birthing hips that had to go in the bathroom and pretend to be physically sick to her stomach and be pretending to throw up so he would leave because he wasn't leaving. She was creeped out. So the wait staff, both male and female at Seven Sirens, said that he creeped them out. Yeah, I think it's possible, Zero, that it definitely had anger issues, in my opinion. Tara says, I always wondered if we were faced with people like this, have the parents and doctors missed something in the developmental years? Well, we know he told people about his visual snow, and at the time, how did he describe himself? As a meat sack, as an empty sack of meat. He said his dad was being kind and loving to him, and he could not have any feelings. So I'm not saying that he's on the autism scale or anything like that, because most people who have autism are kind and caring people. But did he have some sociopathic tendencies? I would say more toward that, or psychopathic. I'm leaning more toward that than autistic, in my opinion. But you could be right too, Tara. Holly said, I think BK set out to confuse law enforcement from the get go. Yeah, I think so. I think he planned to change the tag out on the car when he got back to Albrightsville. He got pulled over twice on the way to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, because law enforcement was reportedly trying to get body cam footage of any potential cuts or marks that he had on his hands or arms. They were zeroed in on him. He had to have a alarm bells going off in his head when he got pulled over, not once, but twice within an hour period of time. And then he lied. He didn't say he was going back to Albrightsville with his dad. What did he tell the law enforcement? They were going for Thai food. Why not just say, my dad and I are traveling back to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania together? Why Thai food? Again, it's weird. It's weird. And I think he was definitely trying to confuse. You're right. Lynette says he thinks he's smarter than everyone else. And Zero says, I think he's above average but excelled because he studied obsessively. You're probably right. Arlene says he actually thought he could teach law enforcement instead of everyone is teaching him how smart he isn't. Yeah, wow, that's a powerful statement. Elizabeth says, I think he went too far to prove to the world that he's not nearly as smart and as alone as he thinks he is. I don't know. Juanita says, the smartest criminals get caught sooner or later. Bundy, yeah, he sure did. He sure did. Old Smoky in Florida. Long Beach Hippie says, did y'all see the white wall and the door to be able to get into the tunnels basement during the demo this morning? I wonder what's in there. There are no tunnels under the house. I'm sorry to break this to you. I did do research. If there had been tunnels under the house, I would have made a video about it. There are no tunnels that run under the 1122 King Road house. I don't know who made the video. I'm not throwing any shade at this person who did that. I'm just telling you, if there had been tunnels underneath the 1122 King Road house, a bunch of us would have made videos on it. It's not there, and it's been debunked. I could do a video debunking it if you guys wanted, and I'll show you. Brian was full of rage. Tara says, I tend to wonder why these people with high IQs with mental health, um, I don't know. Gary says, NBC Dateline says BK purchased online the knife sheath, but that's all I heard. No one else has backed NBC. I've heard the same thing, Gary. I've heard it was purchased on April the 22nd in 2022. So it's coming from an unverified source. We're going to have to wait for the trial to get the source to get law enforcement on record. But let's see if that's right, because it has been reported out. There's an increase in radicalizing online. Yeah, I think online definitely gives it. Elizabeth says he cut fish. Yeah, he worked as a fish fillet man. And he was rude to customers there. Yes, he was. All right, so let's go on to this section because I have a couple more packages after this. And I want to get into everything. This is really important. So there are some early warning signs that you guys can be on the lookout for. This is from crimemuseum.org. And they're partnered with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So these are the 9 warning signs that you want to be aware of. So the first one is psychopaths have a strong tendency toward antisocial behavior. So watch for extremely antisocial children. Now, this doesn't mean that just a child that's having trouble socializing. It could just be the child has autism, which is not the same thing as being a psychopath. But if the child is being extremely social and then goes to being extremely antisocial, that would be a sign. Arson, many SK start as arsonists. It involves manipulation, it involves power, it involves control. David Berkowitz, that was the son who was the son of Sam guy, he was infatuated with pyromania as a child to the point that the other kids nicknamed him Pyro. So after he was arrested, he took responsibility not only for what he did, but he also took responsibility for dozens of New York fires that he set. Look at this number, 1,400 fires. I'm going to watch what I say on this, but this goes back to Buddy the dog, related to animals. People that do unkind things to animals are highly likely to be sociopathic. They're practicing. And most Jeffrey Dahmer, I told you a couple of other ones, all started out this way. Poor family life. Many SKs come from unstable families with criminal, psychotic, or alcoholic histories. They often have terrible relationships with family members and often use them as their first victims. And you will recall who was the very first person that BK got arrested for. He stole from his own sister when he was a young adult, right? That's probably why he interviewed with a job with the local police department. He didn't get it. And the reason is probably because although his record was expunged and it wouldn't have shown up in a regular background check, I guarantee you law enforcement would have known that he was arrested for stealing. And we all know that you don't get arrested just for doing something one time. Usually it's not the person's first time stealing when they get arrested. Usually it's happened multiple times. So his he didn't have a good relationship with his sister. Many SKs are abused physically, psychologically. SA, we know Aileen Wuornos. She was one of the few females. She was portrayed in a film by Charlize Theron in the movie Monster. If you haven't seen it, it's very good. She had a history of being SA'd. Substances. Many SKs struggle with substances. Well, guess who else struggled with substances? BK did. He has a known history. Now, most people who have substance issues don't bother anybody. The only person that they're hurting is themselves. So it wouldn't just be one of these things. It would be a couple of these things. So you're not looking for just one thing in a person. You're looking for clusters. You're looking for clusters. Okay. So you're looking for somebody who has 3 or 4 of these things together. Okay. I just want to make that clear. Most people that have, alcoholism or something like that, they're not bothering anybody. The only person they're hurting is themselves. Voyeurism. We used to think that peeping toms were harmless, just a harmless peeping tom. But we've come to learn that that is not true. It escalates. And Ted Bundy said that as an adolescent, he would drink and stalk his community at night looking for women. That's one of the ways that he started. Intelligence. Many SKs have IQs that are in the bright normal range. So that means that if they're an organized SK, like Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy, their average IQ was 113, while disorganized SKs have a lower IQ of just 93. Ed Kemper, if you have seen the film or read the book Mindhunter, you know who Ed Kemper is. He committed a variety of SKs in California. He admitted to doing it. He had an IQ of 136. Now genius is 140. So, and he killed 8 women. Shiftlessness is another sign. So, despite having a higher than normal intelligence, a bright intelligence, not genius, but bright, many SKs have trouble keeping jobs or work in unskilled labor. David Berkowitz also had an above average intelligence, held several blue collar jobs, including working as a postman. Can you imagine finding out that that guy was your postman? That would be so creepy. I would be so creeped out. All right, let me grab this other one for you. Let me grab this. Okay. You guys see that? Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go over the house demolition a little bit because this is the big news. They just didn't listen to the families. I think it's really sad that they didn't listen to the family members because they really want, and I don't think it was just Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Maddie's families. I would think that BK's family would have wanted that house up too, just in case. And the fact that law enforcement, both the defense and prosecution, were both at that house, not law enforcement, the defense team and prosecution teams were both at that house in the days leading up to it, makes me wonder, like, was this okay? But University of Idaho wanted it down. It was costing the community money to have a guard watch over it. It was an eyesore. Probably didn't help the University of Idaho, who's very anxious to move on from this. But I do think it's interesting that they did go in, the defense team. We saw Ann Taylor's defense team go in to get some more information, maybe take photographs, measurements, drone footage. And also the FBI went in also. So I think that's very, very interesting. What do you guys think? Let's see where we are. Juanita says, we had a similar case in New Zealand. Look up Clayton Weatherston. His performance in court shocked the whole nation. He was a university lecturer who was about to be fired and who was failing his PhD. Wow. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Gosh. I'm not laughing because I think it's funny. I'm laughing because I don't know. I am nervous. I just like it's scary that it can just be somebody that we like know and trust in our lives. Mama Bear says maybe he thought someone in that house caused him to lose his TA position. I don't know. Or he just scapegoated. I think, in my opinion, he became fixated initially on social media. We know he had obsessive compulsive disorder. So I think he was obsessed. Oh my gosh, if you want to see a really good show that kind of shows you how somebody with who's obsessive compulsive disorder, when they get fixated a person, watch the Netflix show You. And watch season 1 of that, and you will understand how this person thinks, how people think about that when they are fixated on people. It's really creepy, you guys. BK did, but his boss said he was bad at it. So I think he practiced. And that's why I think the October 21st, what I shared with you of what I believe happened on October 21st, I think it's very significant that he got the email that told him he failed. He would have felt a lot of intense anger. Thank you so much, Juliet. I really appreciate your kindness. I do a lot of research before I do any videos. And before I do a live stream, I put hours of research into looking up a bunch of stuff and how to relate it to other SKs and how they had done it. So I really appreciate your kindness. If you guys like the covers that I'm bringing you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. We are going to be watching this trial. I don't stream a lot of trials on this channel. In fact, I haven't streamed one yet, but I'm going to be streaming this one. And I may do the upcoming Alex Murdaugh one also, which is coming up in February, just to get a practice in on doing it. And Juanita says that Weatherstone was having a relationship with a female student. Oh, wow. Knife and scissors. Golly. Zero says people like BK don't know how to make casual conversation. That's a basic problem. Yeah, it is. It makes it really hard to relate to other people if you can't converse in a way that makes other people feel comfortable. I recall the quote move group in Philly. Oh gosh. All right. Mandy May, nice to see you. I think he was in love with Sienna. She turned him down. I also have a thought that this was all sort of an experiment to him to see what happens in court or if he can beat the system. Well, we know that people that are sociopathic like to play games, right? They like to play games. We saw this in the Chris Watts case, right? He was sort of toying almost like a cat would do with its food with Shanann. He sent her that picture of the doll with the sheet over its face. He texted that to Shanann and claimed one of the girls did it. It was just a game. It was just a game. So we know that people who are sociopathic like to play games. So I think you're right, Mandy May. Inez says, I'm wondering how he found and chose the fort. Well, my understanding, Inez, is that he was following at least two of the victims on Instagram, and we got this information from Stephen Christie Gonzalez. So I don't think they're making that up. I think that he was following, and I think he was liking their photos, and he was also reportedly, we've heard this from law enforcement sources who have chosen to remain anonymous, that they also say that he was following victims and trying to message at least one of the victims on social media. I'm going to assume that's on Instagram. So great question, Inez. Juanita said he would have carried on if he hadn't been caught. Maybe. Yeah, I think so. I think he doesn't technically fall into the SK category, but I think he would have become that for sure. Zero says unacceptable on many levels. My Doberman is laying in front of me in the doorway of the room I'm in. This animal could give his life to protect me, and I could not imagine. Yeah, dogs are the best. Cats too. But dogs are really good for safety. Other books by profilers is The Anatomy of Motive. Thanks for that, Juanita. Yeah, if you want to read some good books, go through my comment section. You will see good books there. Sarah says to include listeners who don't know about you. Number system, please review what these numbers mean. Thanks for that, Sarah. Hello, Jan. Good to see you. This is one of our executive producers, Jan Brooks, is here with us. Nice to see you. And Juanita's, he was trying to be superior to the woman police officer. Yeah, a cop. I think that I kind of felt like, let me grab a sip of my water. I thought he was being manipulative also when I watched that. To me, it looked very manipulative. He didn't, of course you're going to, people try to talk their way out of a ticket, but it's kind of weird. He really worked hard to talk his way out of that ticket. And I don't know. I thought he was very disarming too. So that tells me he can be charming to get, when he needs to be. So why did all of these women feel like creeped out by him? Because apparently there's another side to him, right? Steffi says, I 100% agree. I always thought and knew he was behind what happened to Buddy. Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence, you guys. I just don't. Thank you for being here, everyone. Remember to hit the like button. Thanks for that, Holly. Yeah, I need you guys smash that the like button. Let me and I'm going to be doing a members live stream tonight too. Crime Analysis is here. Great to see you. Hi, John. He said he knew who he was. Yeah, I think he did too. Jan says everyone in the house wore Vans shoes. So maybe that footprint won't be what we were hoping it would be. Tara says, I really hate it, but I think the house should have stood until after the trial. Yeah, I think you're right. B. Rando said, I work in a male dominant environment and a few men absolutely creep me out while others don't bother me at all or make me feel uncomfortable. Yeah, I think uh most most guys are really great. This was definitely an exception. He was definitely odd. Opinion Einstein, I bet they can tell how old a cut is up to several months. I would think that you would know be able to tell from somewhat from healing. That would be some bringing a medical expert on. Sonia's here. Hi, Sonia. Great to see you. Welcome. Sonia's saying hit the thumbs up button. Please do. That helps me out so much. Kay says, too bad you're wrong. It was the university students that did this. Well, Kay, then if they did this, please tell me why aren't they indicted? For everybody that comes into my chat and tells me that Bryan is innocent until proven guilty, tell me how to perceive the way people have gone after Dylan and Bethany, because they haven't been in charged or indicted with a single thing. They cooperated with law enforcement. I bet you they're going to be. They haven't done any interviews. They haven't cashed in on this. No book deals, no interview deals, nothing. They haven't cashed in on this in any way, shape, or form. They've conducted themselves ethically. They followed the gag order, but people are not giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're innocent until proven guilty, and they haven't been charged with anything. So I disagree with you, Kay, but I appreciate your coming in. All opinions are welcome. I just don't agree with you. And I'm just, it's frustrating. It's frustrating when I'm seeing people going after their roommates constantly. It hurts. It hurts my heart because I feel like these were really young girls. They lost their 4 friends. They were in the house. I can't even imagine how traumatic that would be. And then to find out that their big crime was that they survived, and now they're going to get attacked for that. It just doesn't feel right. So I wish people would just lighten up on that a little bit. Catherine says, "Hello, reporter room. The police in his hometown would have known about his medication." I'm watching my words. "It was a small community and these things are not a secret." Great to see you too, Jan. Well, I think I have to head over because I have a members only live stream. We're doing the Jean Benet Ramsey case. I need to get ready for that next. So I will see you guys next time. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Thank you to our executive producers, our producers, our awesome channel members. Please consider becoming a channel member. It's just a few dollars a month, and you can have your name in every video that I do. I will be coming out with another Bryan Kohberger video tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.